Alright guys, I am now back from my holiday and we have got a lot to talk through in today's video. We've had so many done deals going through since we last did one of these updates, all of which will be spoken about in today's video. And of course we've got an abundance of transfer rumours to go through as well. As always, if we do miss anything off, make sure to get it in the comments down below and we'll give it a mention in the next video. We'll have loads of transfer videos coming out over these next few days, so make sure to stay tuned on the channel for that. Without any further ado, let's just jump in. So we finally had confirmation from Leicester City that Ruud van Nistelrooy won't be their manager going into the Championship next season, and I think we all knew that this was going to be the case. It's been said that it's a mutual agreement between the club and Ruud van Nistelrooy that he's going to be stepping aside. As of recording, the current favourites for that Leicester job, going off the bookies odds, you've got the likes of Sean Dyche, Danny Roll, who's also being considered as well. I'm sure we'll get a little bit more information on that in the next 24-48 hours. And in the last week, we've also had confirmation of Rob Edwards going in at Middlesbrough as well. Honestly, I am a little bit mixed on this appointment. Borough fans, I'd be interested to get your verdict on it in the comments down below. Am I more confident in Middlesbrough making the top 6 next season with Edwards than I would have been had they just persisted with Carrick for another year? I'm not so sure. I do think for all of Edwards' faults last season, there is still a good Championship manager in there. It's just that things really turned sour for him at Luton towards the end, didn't they? But yeah, that mesh with him and Middlesbrough, I'm interested to see how it gets on. Borough on paper do have quite a tricky start to the season as well, so Edwards will definitely want to hit the ground running despite those tough games coming up. And in at QPR, we've also had confirmation of Julian Stefan taking over at Loftus Road as well. We knew this one was in the works for quite some time, but has since been confirmed. Obviously, a manager with plenty of experience in the French top flight. This will be the first time that he's managing in England, but during his time in France, has managed some pretty big players during his time with Rennes and Strasbourg. Very interested to see how he gets on. In terms of some done deals, we've seen Portuguese midfielder Sidney Tavares going in at Blackburn Rovers. He signed a 3-year deal at Ewood Park for an undisclosed fee. Previously, he's from the Leicester City Academy, so definitely want to keep your eye on next season. We've had confirmation of Adam Randall going in at Bristol City. He's joining from Plymouth, where he made 39 appearances in the Championship last season. I think that's a good option for Bristol City. 24 years old, so a good option and another good robust option in the midfield for the Robins. We've also seen Bristol City adding to their goalkeeping department with the addition of Joe Lumley. He signed on a free transfer after his contract at Southampton had expired. We've seen Preston signing Daniel Jebison on a season-long loan deal from Bournemouth. Jebison is someone who is in need of consistent football because there's definitely a player there. At least there was in years gone by when he originally made his breakthrough at Sheffield United under Paul Heckingbottom. Had a good loan spell out with Burton in League One as well. There's no denying that last season, first half of it, while he was out on loan with Watford, that loan spell didn't go to plan, but barely played any football for Watford, all things considered. Just 3 starts for the Hornets, totalling 380 minutes of Championship football with some substitute appearances in there as well. He's 21 years old, he's still young, he's still learning. I've seen a bit about him being a potential Emile Reece replacement. I don't think that's going to be the case whatsoever. North End are still going to be in the market for another striker or two on a permanent basis. Someone like Jebison's just coming in to add to those numbers, and working under a manager like Heckingbottom, who he has previously, who knows, maybe he's able to untap some of that potential that he showed in his early years. In the end, it was West Brom who won the race to sign Liverpool defender Nat Phillips, who spent last season out on loan with Derby County. There were a few Championship sides chasing his signature, but the Baggies have got that deal over the line, with the transfer fee reportedly being around about £3 million. Millwall have added to their goalkeeping options. They've signed Max Krombe on a free transfer after his contract at Burton had expired. He kept 12 clean sheets in League One last season. But the big deal for Millwall recently has been for Josh Coburn, because they've completed a deal for the 22-year-old who signed from Middlesbrough for a club record fee. With add-ons, that deal is worth around £5 million. I think that Borough will be happy to take that, but Millwall definitely sense that there is a player in there who's only going to get better. He's 22 years old. He did miss a large chunk of last season through injury, showed glimpses of that promise and potential while out on loan at Millwall last season. He only scored 5 goals, but his game time was fairly limited because of injuries. Taking into consideration the minutes he played, he averaged a goal in the Championship last season every 243.8 minutes. If you project that over an entire season, let's say he's fit for all 46 games, that works out at around about 16, 17 goals. So I definitely think there is a player there for Alex Neil to work with. But Millwall and Borough fans, what was your reaction to that deal and the sort of finances involved in it? We've also had confirmation of Ajax defender Jakov Medic joining Norwich on a permanent basis. Norwich had been quite proactive in overhauling that back line. I think it was in need of quite a bit after last season. He comes in as another versatile option who can either play as a centre-half or hold a midfielder. And Vladan Kovacevic has also signed for the Canaries. He's joining from Sporting. He's another goalkeeper. He's come in for a base fee of around about 2 million, but that could rise with add-ons included. 27 years old, so should theoretically be in and around the prime years of his career. Didn't really play that much last season while out on loan with Legia Warsaw, but he'll be expecting to come in and be that prominent figure between the sticks for them next season. We've had confirmation of Millwall midfielder George Honeyman dropping down to League One to join Blackpool upon his contract at the Den expiring. And speaking of Blackpool, they've also signed Stoke forward Niall Ennis for an undisclosed fee. Think that's a deal which works out for both clubs and the player. Don't think anyone really thought that he had a long-term future at Stoke City, but enjoyed a good loan spell in the second half of last season with Blackpool, so I'm sure they're pleased to get that deal over the line. We've seen Oxford United's Ruben Rodriguez joining Brazilian side EC Vitória for an undisclosed fee. Oxford will now be going into the market looking for his replacement. Last season in the Championship, only 5 Oxford players featured in more matches than Rodriguez did. He got 4 goals and 3 assists last season. Oxford fans, I'd be interested to get your take on that one and how hard you think it will be to replace that quality, and do you think there are potential upgrades that you could be targeting? Because I'm sure Oxford would be confident in landing that replacement if they're happy to cash in on them at this point. Southampton have agreed terms with Trabzonspor, which will see Paul Onuachu signing for the Turkish club on a permanent basis. He did spend the 2023/24 season out on loan in Turkey with Trabzonspor, so you can see why they've gone back in for him. We've seen Derby County signing Luton forward Carlton Morris on a permanent basis. There's no denying that Morris didn't have the finest of campaigns last time around, obviously involved in that relegation campaign with Luton, but still think there's a very handy player in there, especially for a John Eustace side. Obviously Derby are badly in need this summer of really strengthening those forward options if they want to push up the table, and I think Carlton Morris is a step in the right direction. He's a real handful for Championship defences, even when he himself isn't always scoring. Prime example of that, last season in the Championship, Morris won 234 aerial duels. That's more than any other player in the second tier last season. So yeah, he's the sort of forward that will suit a manager like John Eustace right down to the ground, in my opinion. We've also had confirmation of Spanish fullback Miguel Angel Barão joining Coventry on a free transfer. He's coming in from Granada. Reading defender Amadou Mbengwe has joined QPR upon his contract with Reading expiring. I think that's a nice looking pickup for QPR. The defender's only 23 years old, got plenty of potential. There were a few Championship sides who were in for him as well. He racked up 11 yellow cards in League One last season, and I'm certainly expecting him to put himself about in the Championship next time. Australian fullback Kaylee Adamson has also joined QPR. We're seeing a few more Championship clubs dipping into the Australian market, aren't we? He's only 22 years old, still looks fairly raw and doesn't have a ton of experience behind him, but definitely got potential. We've also seen former Preston goalkeeper Freddie Woodman signing for Liverpool. There were rumours earlier this summer that he was going to be signing for Manchester United. In the end, that deal didn't materialise, but he's instead joined Liverpool, where he'll be going in as their new third choice goalkeeper. But those are some of the latest done deals. Now, without any further ado, let's jump into some transfer rumours. And we'll start out with some Hull City news, because Lewis O'Brien is being heavily linked with the move to Hull City at this point in time. Now, the Nottingham Forest midfielder, it feels like, has been linked with half the Championship at this point. You've also got the likes of Southampton, Birmingham, Swansea and Wrexham, who have all been interested at some point, but it seems like it's Hull who are now really pushing ahead with this deal. Now, earlier in the week, reports did come out claiming that Hull had submitted a £5 million bid for the midfielder. However, since that point, local reports have claimed that that's not the case and that Hull won't be paying that amount. What is clear, though, is that Hull have been in talks with Nottingham Forest over these last few days and weeks in regards to a deal, but in terms of the total financial package, that still seems to be where the two clubs are differing in terms of what Forest value him at and what Hull are prepared to pay. So negotiations Speculation still ongoing with that one. I think it would be a cracking signing though if Hull got that one over the line. A cheaper midfield alternative being eyed up by Hull City is for John Joe Shelvey, who's available on a free transfer this summer. Now, we didn't really see that much of Shelvey for Burnley last season. He only made 2 cameo appearances for them in the Championship, totaling just 11 minutes of football. He's 33 years old now. You wouldn't imagine would be coming in as that prominent of a starter at Hull, but could still offer them something as maybe a squad player in and out of that team. And Hull have also been in talks with Aston Villa regarding a deal for Louis Barry. He obviously spent the second half of last season on loan with Hull. Hull fans didn't really see that much of him during that time, though missed the majority of that loan stint because of an injury. Only made 4 appearances for Hull in the Championship. But Aston Villa are prepared to sell the 22-year-old on a permanent basis this summer to help out with PSR issues. And after he absolutely ripped things up in League One in the first half of the season, you can see why there'd be interest from not just Hull but a few Championship clubs. And another youngster that Aston Villa are prepared to sell on a permanent basis is Kane Kessler-Hayden. He's been linked with the likes of Middlesbrough, Coventry and Southampton right now. He's coming off the back of a brilliant loan spell in the Championship last season with Preston North End, and in a similar case to Louis Barry, Aston Villa also prepared to cash in to go ahead and help out with their PSR issues. Being a homegrown player, he'd be pure profit on the balance sheet, but I do think he'd be a really good option for any of those sides. Now, in the case of Southampton especially, it's understandable why they're being linked with a few right-backs at the moment. We have had it confirmed that Kyle Walker-Peters will be leaving the club this summer upon his contract expiring. I think we all knew that that was going to be the case anyway, but you've currently got the likes of Tottenham, Leeds and Everton who are all interested in the fullback on a free transfer. And another fullback option being looked at by Southampton is for Max Johnston. The Scottish international came up through the Motherwell Academy, but he spent the last couple of years playing for Sturm Graz in Austria. He's only 21 years old and is reportedly available for just over £2 million this summer. Quite a few Championship clubs were linked with him last summer, but it seems like Southampton are prepared to push ahead with that deal now. And after weeks of speculation, Demarai Gray is set to return to Birmingham, and Blues fans, would be interested to get your perspective on this one in the comments down below. He's 29 years old, not coming off the back of the best of seasons in Saudi Arabia, but for Championship standards, I definitely think there's a player there that could make a difference for a side going for potentially the top 6 next season. Now, there have been a few conflicting reports over the structure of this deal. We've had Ben Jacobs reporting that Al Ettifaq are prepared to let Demarai Gray leave on a free transfer, but they'd retain a significant sell-on fee for the player. But then we've had some conflicting reports recently coming out from Football Insider claiming that it will actually be a loan deal, as the player's wages make a permanent deal difficult to do at this time. For context, Demarai Gray reportedly is currently on around about 75 grand a week playing in Saudi Arabia. So we'll wait and see over these next few days whether that one is a permanent or a loan, or there's some workings in that, whether it's a loan to buy or anything like that. One thing's for sure though, I'm definitely excited to see him back in the Championship. I know we're going back quite a long way, you know, to his time when he was last playing for Birmingham, but such an exciting prospect back then, wasn't he? Another really exciting addition for Birmingham is that of Tommy Doyle, with Blues agreeing terms with Wolves over a loan deal for the midfielder. They've beaten off plenty of Championship competition for this deal as well. The 23-year-old has quite a bit of Premier League experience under his belt now. He's made over 50 appearances in the top flight, albeit a lot of those games have been from the bench, but for an option in midfield for Birmingham next season, I think that's a really good deal for them. And it looks like we finally have an end in sight to the Kwame Poku saga, with QPR being in pole position to sign the 23-year-old. Now, there's been weeks, months of speculation regarding the Peterborough United star, who is technically available on a free transfer this summer upon his contract with Posh expiring, but because of his age, QPR will be needing to pay some compensation fees to Peterborough, and that compensation fee believed to be around about 900k. Now, QPR have beaten off so much competition to his signature. At one point, he looked set to sign for Rangers. We've had Swansea coming in with a late proposal. Earlier in the window, it was Birmingham who were most prominently being linked with the 23-year-old. The guy's been linked with about 40 clubs from around Europe throughout this summer, but by all accounts, it looks like QPR are the club who are going to get this deal over the line. And I've got to say, I am massively excited for this one. I have to admit, I didn't expect him to end up at a QPR, but I do think that is a massively exciting deal there, and the prospect of 3 playing off the striker next season at QPR being Chair, Dembele and Poku, yeah, I think there's a lot of fun to be had with those 3. Both Andy Weimann and Danny Bart are set to sign for Derby County upon their contracts with Blackburn expiring. They'll be linking up with former boss John Eustace. I think from a Derby perspective, there are a couple of sensible pickups there, especially on free transfers. There's currently plenty of interest in Liverpool's Owen Beck, who is set to be loaned out once again. The 22-year-old spent last season out on loan with Blackburn. Currently from the Championship, you've got the likes of Wrexham and Derby who are interested. Rangers I've also seen linked as well. There's currently plenty of Championship interest in Barnsley midfielder John Russell. According to reports, you've got the likes of Derby, Blackburn, Oxford and Stoke who are all currently tracking the Jamaican. And you can understand why. He scored 11 goals and got 2 assists in League One from midfield last season. Ended the campaign really good. 5 goals in his last 5 games for Barnsley. He's going into the last year of his contract at Oakwell as well. We could potentially get a bit of a bidding war on our hands there if one or two of those clubs do lodge an official offer in the coming days. And speaking of Derby, they're also really pushing the boat out to try and sign Patrick Agyman from Charlotte FC in MLS. The United States international stands at 6'4", looks like his skill set would translate quite well into Championship football. He looks like quite a big, powerful striker. He's got a turn of pace, he can shoot off both feet as well. Now, as of recording the latest information on this deal, Derby have submitted an offer in the region of $8 million. We're talking around about £5.8 million there. As of recording, agreement hasn't been made between Derby and the MLS club, but they seem confident in getting that sort of deal done, and the player himself is keen on the move as well. So Derby really making some moves in over these last few days, that's fair to say. Rangers are still in advanced talks with Leicester regarding a deal for Connor Cody. It seems more than likely that that deal will be going through in the next week or so. From a Leicester perspective, they've got quite a bit to iron out, I think, between now and the start of the season. I think that's fair to say. There's currently plenty of Championship interest in Luton Town forward Melenik Ali, with the likes of Middlesbrough, Leicester and Sheffield United all interested. Now, Luton only signed him back in the January transfer window. They picked him up from Exeter after a prolific run in League One. Luton signing him for around about $1.5 million. He had a really strong end to the season, scored 4 goals in his last 6 league matches for Luton, including a brace on the final day against West Brom. You could definitely see why there would be a bit of Championship interest there. Speaking of Sheffield United, they're also interested in bringing in Nottingham Forest centre-half Tyler Binden, who spent last season out on loan in League One with Reading, so he's already familiar with Ruben Sellers. Had a really good loan spell in League One last time around. Started in 44 League One matches for the Royals, only 20 years old. I think that next step in his career probably will be in the Championship. Watford are close to completing a deal for Portuguese striker Vivaldo Semedo. He'd be coming in from Udinese. He spent last season out on loan in the Portuguese second division. Only 20 years old, so still fairly raw, but would be a welcomed addition at Watford for next season, given their lack of forward options at the moment, given the players that are likely to move on and who they've got on the books at this point. But not the news that Watford fans probably wanted to hear, and that's that Imran Louza has informed the club that he would like to leave this summer. At his best, I think he's absolutely one of the best midfielders at this level and definitely capable of playing at a higher level, and you'd imagine that Watford would be looking for a sizable transfer fee to let him go, probably something in the ballpark of around about 10 million, I'd argue he's probably valued at. Technical ability is absolutely superb. When you get him into the right setup, a player like that can absolutely flourish. But going off the latest reports, it seems very unlikely that he'll still be a Watford player come the first game of next season. There's currently plenty of Championship interest in Cardiff midfielder Alex Robertson. Of those interested, unsurprisingly, Portsmouth are in the mix. Obviously, they've previously had the midfielder on loan at Fratton Park. Now, the 22-year-old only joined Cardiff last summer for an initial fee of around about 1 million. That could rise to 3 million with add-ons. But with them being relegated to League One, his long-term future in Wales is now up for debate. According to reports, there's about a dozen Championship clubs who are currently interested. There's also interest from in Europe and in MLS as well. Thought he looked like quite a tidy player from what I saw of him last season. You can see why there'd be so much Championship interest right now. Millwall are interested in the deal for West Brom defender Caleb Taylor, who's coming off the back of a really good loan spell in League One last season with Wickham. Started in 37 matches for Wickham last season. He's a centre-half. He stands at 6'6". Absolutely screams of a Millwall defender, doesn't he? Now, he's still under contract with the Baggies until 2028, and so they would demand a reasonable transfer fee to him. I've seen it going around on social media. That fee could be anything from 2.5 to 3 million. But you could definitely see why Millwall would be interested. But there you have it, guys. That will wrap it up for today's video. Thank you very much for tuning in. As always, any stories that we did miss off today, make sure to get them in the comments down below. It's been a while since we last did one of these videos, so there's definitely going to be quite a few that have slipped through the cracks. But fear not, we'll be covering all of those stories over the next few days on the channel. So thanks as always for tuning in, and I'll see you guys in the next one.